Hey, welcome to the commentary for the latest death battle, Red versus Blue. It's an interesting episode. I believe this may be our first team-based episode in a while.
Very long time.
Since what, season 1? But as always, I'm joined by Chad, voice of Boomstick. Hello,
What's
Chad.
up? Hello.
He's here, of course. And then we've got Josh, writer of this episode.
Hello.
And Nick, editor of this episode.
Yay. Say hi, Nick.
You there, Nick?
I am here. I just never heard anybody call my name. It was just left to Josh on my end of things.
Nick's
So
been having some audio issues, so if he seems a little off today, that's why.
That's what it is.
it's also just because
Okay.
it's me. But
Yeah.
Cool. Anyway.
I promise you, on my
hopefully
end of
that
things, all I heard
doesn't
was, "This is Josh, writer of the episode," and then just silence. So thank you, Google.
Perfect. Well, let's jump into this episode then. So we're doing this episode for a lot of different reasons. For one thing, it is RVB. It is the one of the main reasons why we are here.
Nice.
Literally, how it all starts in
But do you
the
ever
show
wonder
and for
why
us.
we're here?
Because of the show, Chad. It is why we exist.
There may be a couple more of those jokes in the actual episode.
Oh no. But also because a new season is coming up that actually Josh was a big part of, and we wanted to sort of not just kind of lead into this new kind of take of Red vs. Blue with a celebration of what Red vs. Blue has been for the past 17 years, which is nuts. But also like experiment, try new things with the Halo characters, and sort of build into the show. Josh, what was it like on your end, sort of jumping into this episode?
It was great. It was really, really fun. Because for one thing, yeah, it was a good primer for RBB Zero, like to have to go back and really focus on the early seasons of the show and analyze it and write a script and everything like that. But it was so fun because I think I add a lot of jokes, regardless of whether or not they're good. I add a lot to my scripts, like to a fault. But for RBB, it was great because the show is silly in the greatest way. You know, like these guys are super strong and tough, but have absolutely no reason to be. So to get to pack jokes about that into this was awesome. And like you were saying, also, it's like, when do we get to do two combatants from the same universe? So that was an interesting thing to write into the script as well.
Yeah, figuring out how. So the Reds and Blues are a very, very good example of a show that was never meant to be analyzed the way Death Battle does, as displayed by that Simmons. I believe
Apologies
we
if I'm
calculate that
interrupting
he's like.
anyone talking, but I cannot hear Ben. I can hear Josh and I can hear Chad. I can't hear Ben right now.
Do you have
Thank
Ben
Google.
muted on accident?
And now he can't hear you either.
Oh no!
But now I can hear Ben. Oh man, this is just
Okay.
a cluster.
Nick's having some issues. Anyway,
If somebody asks me a question, everybody needs to just say, "Hey,
everyone
ask
repeat
the
this question.
yes."
Listen, this
Otherwise,
is the
I will just
Say the
be
question.
here patiently waiting my turn to
This-
speak.
is the content that you pay for first for.
And
right
we thank
here.
you for it.
It's that quality that we are able to deliver based on your
Yes.
recurring subscriptions. And thank you so much for allowing us to make this gigantic leap in production value.
Oh my god.
So anyway, Red versus Blue.
What were we even talking about?
These characters were never
oh.
meant to be analyzed. Yeah.
Yeah. Like Simmons is apparently, I believe, 90 times faster than a super soldier.
Right. Yeah.
But like he never actually displays that in any reasonable in any event where that would actually come in handy. He only does it in this one occasion. But you know, we're Death Battle, so we got to calculate it. We got to take it, seriously.
And I said it before, that's one of the reasons I love the show. These are my favorite episodes when
Yes.
shit should never be analyzed the way that we do and we get
Yeah.
to do it. That's the best.
Oh, and this also was an episode that like not only has a ton of lore because it's a long running show, but there's also a little bit of Death Battle lore that we could play with, like the Griffin or the Sarge and Boomstick running gag,
Oh
which
my
was
God.
fun to
Yep.
play with.
Yes.
You just have a
So-
catch with them. Those are my favorite lines.
No, it's not confirmed.
True.
We don't know for sure.
Boomstick
if
sure
Sarge
doesn't know.
is Boomstick's dad. Boomstick definitely doesn't know. There are definitely people who can surmise that maybe there's something there, but it's not confirmed.
I mean, Ben and I have talked about it in the past, but getting to write that episode, Meta versus Carolina, was so cool. It was like this weird, surreal 360 moment of like just the way our careers landed us where we were, and we ended up getting to write an actual episode of Red versus Blue and then become part of Bruce. It was really, and then tie in our characters, and Sarge was an inspiration on the Boomstick voice. Like, it was just this weird circle that was just really cool that we got to do. So, getting to work with the franchise again is awesome.
Well, and this episode is different in that it's not, that episode was very specifically a crossover into Red vs. Blue Season 14. Right. That was just sort of how Season 14 worked. It had a lot of different kind of episodes from different creators and crossovers and whatnot. This, in particular, is very much a traditional death battle, analyzing the Reds and Blues on its own, as a death battle would normally do. There was, when we started this, there was some talks about, like, well, maybe the Reds are like calling Wiz and Boomstick, or the Blues are calling Wiz. Well, maybe the Reds and Blues are calling Wiz and Boomstick to like ask like who would have actually won or whatever. Like that was kind of thrown around a bit to sort of mirror how Meta versus Carolina was set up. But at the end of the day, we wanted to treat it as a normal episode and not as some like special crossover that made it feel like it was part of Red versus Blue, because it's not. And also make sure that the rules in particular were well established, not confusing, because we definitely had to tweak some rules a bit just because of the team aspect. There's a reason why we don't do a lot. There are a lot of reasons why we don't do a lot of team-based death battles. Some of them can be attributed to just it's a lot.
That it is.
And others can be attributed to it's a lot to analyze. It's not just a lot to like work on, it's a lot to analyze as well. And like working on something that requires a lot of time, we can do that. We can structure things around that, right? We can structure our schedule around that. But like when you throw a bunch of combatants into the ring all at once,
it's a lot of variables.
Yeah, like who attacks first? Does that matter? What if this person attacks this person and doesn't attack that person? Does that change, the result? There are so many factors that just are. It becomes a way more complicated answer.
Yeah, and that's why, like, it's easier for us to do team battles that are in universe, right? Because we know how these characters work together. We know how they interact with each other, and we know what their knowledge is of the other person. So we can it makes it a lot easier to like try and figure out the most likely scenario, right?
Yeah, and I would say this is a team matchup that is a bit more straightforward than some of the. If we were to do like. We'll probably do Avengers versus Justice League at some point, right? Because that makes a lot of sense.
God.
But holy shit, that is going to be a complicated one.
Hell.
Because they all have crazy powers and whatnot. That's not really the case here. Like, each red or blue has a specific like technique that's important, but otherwise they're all kind of similar to each other, at least in terms of like what they're bringing to the battlefield. One of them's stronger than the other. One of them has a different weapon. That's about it. Once you bring in like Superman has 20 million powers and Hulk has so many different like personalities or whatnot, that's where complications get freaking crazy. So this is definitely a good first foray, I think, into team battles. Outside of, I believe, you could consider Eggman versus Wily a team battle. That was like an army versus army.
Yeah.
I think that's the only one we've done. Now that I think about it.
I mean, but also, we've done battle royales, so like.
Yeah.
Sure.
The TMNT one is the one I always think of when we're like, oh, we can do it with multiple combatants because of that.
Yes. Yeah.
Then the Pokemon
Battle royales and
royales
team
too.
battles are definitely. There's definitely similarities. I still think teams would be even more complicated, because there's not just the different factors of characters like versus everybody else, but there's also how do they work together in alliances and things like that. But Nick, now that it sounds like you can hear us,
For now,
yes,
let's take the
talk
seize
about the
day.
edit. Let's do that real quick.
Gosh, so the edit on this one, obviously tons and tons of episodes to sift through, and thankfully, Josh Kazemi actually was the one who started the edit on this, so some headway had already been made there. But yeah, lots and lots of seasons and episodes to sift through. It was also a good chance to like refamiliarize myself with the series because it's been a hot minute for me. But gosh, just watching through all the footage, I kind of all in one project got to see the evolution of the show and just where it started versus where it most recently was and where it's going. Most importantly, relevantly to today, it's just a really cool perspective. Being able to see all the history of Red versus Blue all in one project.
It's like Death Battle. Like when we started, man, it was like we were still just like, this is awesome. Look what we did. And then now you see like,
and if anybody's responding, I can't hear anyone speak.
Of course, great. Tell them I'm talking. Like, you know, looking back on like where we started and then like where our animation is now is just ludicrous. It's the same thing with Red versus Blue, man. Like that highway chase scene that was shown, you know, it's just like, holy crap, this came from a glitch in a game that lets people bob their heads and look like they were talking, and now look at where it is.
Yeah, and I will always be super impressed at what Bernie and Matt and Gus and the rest of the gang were able to pull from with basically taking a bunch of jokes they made for 5 years and turn it into this crazy like huge story built on lore
and
based
Monty.
on jokes that they made. Yes, and Monty, of course, but like a throwaway joke that like Florida doesn't exist anymore became part of the lore. Oh, now they got to address that, you know, things like that, and tying it into the stories. Why they have random robot bodies, you know. It's really clever, frankly. The show overall has always been really clever. And we're into the fight, which of course Torian, the showrunner and director of Red vs. Blue Zero, was also the director and animation director for this fight, and a lot of the techniques being used in RVB Zero, or at least some of the early ones, were sort of developed in this fight as well. This is sort of like a test run in a way, which ended up creating a battle which honestly I think has no right to look as good as it does.
Yeah, with the goofiest characters, right?
It's wild how a Red versus Blue battle of all things looks this fucking cool.
So I'm really excited because I haven't seen this yet.
Oh,
really?
man.
You haven't?
This is my first time seeing it.
Nice.
It's so much fun.
Yeah.
Of course, we get so many of the original actors in as well, and like celebrating all the jokes and whatnot that we've seen for 17 years. It's very much when we were recording Bernie in particular, he kept commenting how like this feels like jumping back to an earlier season, which is kind of the point, right? Because we're using
It's
a
a
lot
throwback,
of season one material. The idea is what would have happened if the season one characters had all fought actually to the death. So it definitely, the point was to try to recreate some of that early season stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I love this shot. It's so good.
I love how like cartoonishly all the deaths are treated. There was a really funny alternate take of this part right here, where Griff just goes, "No, I should have been the one to kill you." I wanted to use it, but it didn't quite fit in there.
That's awesome.
That's funny.
That's really funny.
And I mean, even going into it, like there is honestly like a version of this that already exists. There's an alternate ending to episode 100, where everybody dies. But it's not quite a battle. It's more so just like a lot of crazy shit happens and kills everyone.
Yeah.
And nobody can really be reasonably upset. Like this is just kind of how it would really go.
Totally.
So we definitely wanted to focus on it as a battle, especially this part.
Look at this. Yeah, I know. Look at this action,
Yeah.
man.
It's amazing.
So, like
This is
it's not Red versus Blue and it's not Death Battle if you don't have some like legitimately cool action in there somewhere, no matter how silly the characters really are.
Yeah.
Of course. Anything you want to comment on, Josh, regarding on the choreography and
Yeah, I mean, it was
pacing
fun.
of it all?
Before we even kind of started writing the fight script, we had conversations with Torian that were like, what are kinds of things you want to like to test out, to kind of like try and play around with. So it was this cool mix of like, what are these characters actually going to do in a fight to the death versus what does Torian want to kind of like test his hand at. And so it was this good mix of like that car chase that you saw in the beginning, that you've seen in the RVB Zero trailer, that we obviously have some car stuff in that, and then obviously all this cool hand-to-hand combat Torian was going to do. really cool stuff with. So
Hold on, sorry, did he just Game of Thrones?
oh yeah,
Oh my god.
of course.
Night Kingdom, dude.
I love the
was
little
amazing.
shotgun dance that just happened right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Such a fun little
Oh
touch.
my god.
Oh yeah.
I think it's kind of funny that like the one character who gets a good hit on Tex is Griff of all people. Then he immediately dies. But of course, Tex could not. I'm sure a lot of people are going to jump into this episode thinking like, the Blues are obviously going to win because they have Tex, and Tex is a super soldier compared to a bunch of doofuses. But of course,
She doesn't stand
Tex
a chance
can
against
win
her own
stuff.
teammate. Yeah.
Well, she doesn't stand a chance against her own teammate, but she's also programmed to fail, so we had to consider that as well. Which is probably one of the more complicated elements of this, like figuring out where that limit might be.
Right. And how to
kind of-
convey it in the script. You know, it's like a complicated
Yeah.
idea. Yeah, to get across.
Because it's a vague idea, and even trying to analyze it, like you can go too far with that and start. If you analyze it too much, you have to bring up a lot of assumptions.
Yeah.
So we weren't really able to go too far with it. We just had to kind of assume that like it basically means she can't win the whole thing herself. Which is sort of how, the Project Freelancer saga went. She could win individual fights, but when it came to like the full perspective of everything, yeah, she couldn't do it. And then of course, Caboose is the last one
Yeah,
standing.
of course it
Of
is.
course he is.
And not just, one, he's a lovable character, sure, but because he's also the toughest one of them all for some ungodly reason. So it's not fan service, it is legitimately how we think it would end up. He would survive. Also, nobody would think of him as a threat, so like nobody would attack him.
Yeah.
Totally.
Because he's Caboose, what's he gonna do? Kill his
Right.
own teammates, so why would the Reds attack him?
Yep.
Oh my gosh, I loved working on this episode so much. I hope you guys did too. This is, I guess, our gag episode of the year. Although I guess Machamp versus Goro could also fill that kind of role in a way.
That was my other episode. That's so funny.
Yeah, well, that was funny because like you mentioned, like I love putting jokes into episodes and whatnot, so it was great to have this. And I was like, that's why you were on Machamp Goro.
Yeah. Yeah. To the brim.
Exactly. We know what type of episode you want. Oh man! So whenever our next gag episode shows up, or whatever stupid idea we decide to do, you know who's writing it.
Ah. You're welcome.
Oh my god!
Is anybody talking? Because I can't hear you.
Speaking of gag episodes,
I'm just
to
kidding.
this day want to do Alfred Pennyworth versus Aunt May.
Oh my
Oh
gosh.
yeah, dude. No, I mean, there's some ridiculous shit. I don't know, like, Aunt May's got some crazy shit, man. I don't know what Alfred's gonna do.
I'm sure he does too. He's got to. He's picked up some stuff in the bad game.
Yeah, but like, not Aunt May levels. Like, she had the powers cosmic at one point.
Oh my god. Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
It was insane. Now I actually can't hear Ben if he's talking. So
I can't hear him either.
It's
I don't know what he
spreading.
is.
Oh god!
It's not just
The
me.
virus.
We made it to the end. Ben's probably talking on his recording, but none of us can hear him.
They
so
said I could break anything,
next
so
up.
I broke all.
Thank
of
you for
Google.
joining us
There we go.
There we
we
go.
got
on
him.
another episode. And no, I was not talking that entire time.
Oh, you got me
Good, good,
back.
good.
Yeah.
Suck it, bitches! I'm out.
Hey, thanks for being first.
Oh man, I can't wait to listen to this and hear what we talked about.
Thanks for watching. This commentary was originally released on roosterteeth.com for first members in our disastrous year of 2020. But as of 2021, we're bringing them to you on the Death Battle YouTube channel, so be sure to subscribe.